My guest today is Professor Zhaoping Li, who is Professor of Medicine and Chief of the Division of Clinical Nutrition at the University of California, Los Angeles. Her research focuses on clinical nutrition and beneficial effects of food on nutrition. Welcome, Zhaoping.
Okay. Thank you for having me. And a few words about myself. I actually are trained in internal medicine as a medical doctor. When I actually started my career, I was very much wanted to take the most challenging disease, and that is the cardiovascular disease. So started doing basic research, tried to figure out how to protect our heart muscles, even when there's compromised blood flow, such as when a heart attack happens.
Let's go into some of your papers. So one of the papers I have here that you sent me, mixed spices at culinary doses have prebiotic effects in healthy adults, a pilot study. So you say here spices were used as a food preservative prior to the advent of refrigeration, suggesting the possibility of effects on microbiota. Previous studies have shown prebiotic activities in animals and in vitro, but there has not been a demonstration of prebiotic and postbiotic effects at culinary doses in humans. Yeah, so I'm very interested in this Zhaoping. So I grew up in South India, and I grew up with very, very spicy food. I love it. And I've been here for 30 years, and my tastes have changed a bit, but I still like spicy food. And so there is a sort of a connection between spices and microbiota, right? So what does the study tell us, the pilot study that you have done here?
Okay. First of all, spices has been major part of a human evolution. And Silk Road started with trading spices and moving spices from Far East to the West, the New World. Actually, is not true. Silk Road started with trading silk. Spices has been proven by experience to be helpful for overall health, that including physical health and spiritual mood as well.
Okay. Good.
Now with new technology, we wanted to explore what are the scientifically based mechanisms spices would help people. And first, I also want to say spices are very broad definition. Is not only the pungent food, but also including cinnamon, curcumin, turmeric, and sage and thyme. All of those are under the category of spice.
Yeah.
You mentioned, when you were talking, you mentioned use spice to preserve food. So whenever you think about preserved food, you're basically talking about spices or whatever is inhibiting bacterial growth in the food. So that's the reason the food go bad. So you have just introduced the concept that is, spices are having effect on microbes. Therefore, it is a prebiotics. Prebiotics means all the natural component of spice or other compounds have impact on microbes. And if you think about we're killing the bad microbes, we call antibiotics. The prebiotics means we actually supporting the microbes. So particularly for human health, was supporting the good ones. Now coming into another very important concept. In the past, we have really struggled to understand how spices are helping us, helping human being. Because the compound in the spice are very large. They cannot be absorbed into our blood flow. Therefore, we used to think, oh, those big compounds just passing through, they're not really bioavailable, therefore not much to study. But now we know, yes, they're not absorbed and not digested in small bowels. But when you get to larger bowel, when there's trillions of microbes there, those spices will changing the gut microbiome. The microbiome actually break down the big compounds coming along with the spice and then do two things. One is they're going to release small molecules because they're digesting those big compounds. And also, they eat them, in my human term, they eat those compounds and then they release, after they use it, the bacteria release compounds the bacteria just, made on its own. So those two categories of compounds, and then now from larger bowel will get into the bloodstream or directly interface with the nerve endings in the larger bowels or through the lymphatic system, impact on our body and every single organ and system. So that is why now we have a much better understanding, not only if they're effect or not, but how they are impact on our overall health.
Yeah, this is so interesting. So how do we know, well, let me backtrack a little bit. So there's the gut bacteria, the microbiome, that appears to have a significant effect on health of the human being. And how you sort of moderated or modulated has a lot of effects, potentially a higher effect than even taking an artificial chemical agent, potentially. I don't know. And so what do we know? I mean, so there are two things going on here, if I understand this correctly, Zhaoping. So there's food that you're putting into your system, and the food has to be digested and all of that. That food has some effect on you in a sort of a systemic way. So suppose I eat beef or some sort of vegetable that has some effect on you as on a system, right? So what do we know how humans actually do all of these things?
Aha. So let me just, explain it probably in a more simpler way. All right.
Yeah.
So the intestine is about the length of a human body, all right, from fingertip to fingertip, and if you spread out your arms.
Yeah.
So small bowel and large bowel actually have different structure. We used to think, oh, they just happen to be looking different. But now we know actually they have a totally different function. Small bowel, it is mostly break down the food and absorbing all the breakdown small molecules into the blood. So that is what we know much better. We call bioavailability. And the larger bowels, we used to think, okay, that's just a place to store feces, maybe reabsorb some water back. And there's some bacteria making like vitamin K. And maybe that's, about it. Not much of function. But now like I said earlier, large bowel is predominantly where our gut microbiome located. So the food we eat, if not being absorbed and digested and absorbed in small bowel, when they come into larger bowels, whatever we eat reach the larger bowels will then shape the community of gut microbiome. And then one is those large molecules the small bowel cannot handle. Now the bacteria help it to break down smaller molecules we absorb. And the second class is what I mentioned earlier. Then the bacteria, depends on what you feed them, feed which kind of bacteria. And then they live on those big compounds. And during their proliferation, they release more small molecules that would interact with our body as well. So I'll give you an example to give you a feel for how much impact this is. If we now have technology called, metabolomics, basically we can have one drop of blood and measure all the molecules in it with today's technology. Because with more advanced technology, we're going to be able to detect more and more molecules. So let's just say right now, we can, measure, 1,000 range, let's just say. But out of that, now we conservatively estimate about third to 40% those molecules are the molecules coming from microbiota, from the bacteria. All right.
So that's probably the biggest organ in the body. Yeah.
Right. So I'll give you an example. We used to think our mood is controlled by the neurotransmitters. Give example, one is called serotonin, most common, right?
Yeah.
And we were thinking, okay, those are made pretty much in the neuron synapses where the nerve endings touch each other. But now, including our own research, we have discovered about 90% of us, serotonin is made in the gut.
In the gut. Yeah.
Yes, by the bacteria and our neuroendocrine cells in the larger bowels. And also the interaction. And so that is where most of the serotonin is made. So the gut feeling is definitely nowadays has this scientific backing and proving to it. And the other aspect I want to say, you mentioned beef. Let's just say we eat beef and how our body interact with it. And as we know, those days, eating large amount of red meat is concerning about the fat content, how it come along with the red meat, that can be concerning with, antibiotics coming along with it or, the pollutions and all of that. But, one of the study we have done is that we wanted to improve the food quality with spices, for example. Because spice, you just said it, you grew up with it, I grew up with it, and it's, being a human being using it for millions of years. So we want to figure it out, can we make the red meat interact with our body differently by adding spices, because our ancestors have been doing that, obviously for mental and physical health. So what we discovered,
evolutionary in some ways.
Yeah. So we end up discovering just simply, we did a study with patty, meat patties for hamburger, right? So we cook the patty, the beef, ground beef, with either salt alone or different kind of spice added to it. Black pepper. We did it individually. Black pepper, curcumin, turmeric, and sage, and all of those individually. And we also did it like a mixed culinary dose. If you go to the store, you will buy to cook the burger meat. And then we analyze the burgers afterwards. We clearly see most of the spices alone, definitely in combination of spices, can decrease the production of lipid products that is oxidized. That has been associated with increased risk for heart disease. That's
what I want to talk about. So another paper that you have here, acute effects of cinnamon spice on postprandial glucose and insulin in normal weight and overweight obese subjects, a pilot study. So I always thought that cinnamon is beneficial, but then I thought you have to have so much cinnamon before you can actually measure the effect. So what do you find here?
Okay. So I think when you do clinical studies, this is a very important question before you start the study. That is, what is the goal? And what is the clinical translatable, meaning? So your question is a very good one. If you, have to eat, whole, I don't know, and a whole bunch, let's say even a teaspoon or tablespoon of cinnamon, that's a lot. You can show benefit, nobody can do it. So what we did is really stay by the culinary dose. So when we look at the cinnamon's effect on blood glucose, we used 4 grams. 4 grams will be equivalent like a sack of sugar you put in your coffee. And that is 4 grams, right? The little paper packet sugar, that's 4 grams. So we add that much cinnamon through the day. You don't have to take it as one shot. We just say, average you have that much cinnamon through the day. We're looking at continuous glucose, not just one meal. We monitor your glucose and for a long time and a couple of weeks. And then we clearly see cinnamon is beneficial. Your glucose level is much, much better controlled. To answer your question, and the typical dose we use in, average life, it is adequate to give you meaningful benefits.
I mean, that is, if it's so easy, I don't know, we have 330 million people here. I would imagine 50 million of them are diabetic or getting into diabetes. If cinnamon actually saves them, we should have some pill, right? In that direction.
Well, pill or no pill, we all talking about those days, food is medicine. This is particularly true for chronic diseases. The reason I started my career in trying to be cardiologist and now I'm practicing nutrition is because of the fact I recognize heart disease as a lifestyle disease. If we can, control that, then we can prevent and treat heart disease. And when we're talking about lifestyle, 70% is food because we eat not once and more than once. So, and I think it's very important as a society, we going back to our roots and how, take advantage of what human beings have learned during evolution, leverage what we get from the environment, mostly plants, Particularly in today's, modern food supplies everywhere, but really looking back to leverage the new discovery we have today, but also not forgot or drop what our ancestors have collected and learned through millions of years evolution. Spice is one of them.
Spice is one of them. So you have another study here. Antioxidant-rich spice added to hamburger meat during cooking results in reduced meat plasma and urine melanodilate, whatever that's called, concentration. So it seems like meat cooked with spices is a good thing, isn't it?
Yes, because it actually preserves the meat quality better and also decrease, the fat to be oxidized. And so the food essentially have more compounds before you eat that can give you more risk for heart disease. And there's another important thing. We're also talking about Americans eating or taking in too much salt. So if you can add spices for flavor, they not only give you all the benefit, but if you use it to replace salt, you can actually cook much more delicious food without really use excess amount of salt and sugar and fat, right? So there's 3 pillars now for modern, cuisine, culinary medicine, that is salt, sugar, and fat. If we actually, taking what nature has given us, spice into the equation, then you can definitely decrease those things we worry we have too much. That can be salt, that can be sugar, or that can be fat.
So in your paper here, you say the overall effect of adding the spice mixture to hamburger meat before cooking was a reduction in melanodilate, whatever that's called, concentrations in the meat, plasma, and the urine after ingestion. So therefore, cooking hamburgers with polyphenol-rich spice mixture can significantly decrease the concentration of the issue. So I mean, this is a sort of a big policy question, which is, so we have 330 million people. I would imagine 100 million of them are eating hamburgers out of Burger King or, wherever. And that stuff is pretty bad. So we can potentially make them better by doing something that is subtle. Actually, it looks like to me. Yeah?
Yes, that is definitely true. We not only demonstrate when you're cooking with spice, your food is healthier. We also further verified if you then ingest the food with spice, and then inside your body, the spice can continue to benefit you. But that is what you just mentioned. We measured the levels of your oxidized lipids in your blood. That is a risk factor for heart disease. That can be significantly lowered. So in another sense, if you're cooking with spice, your food is better, preserved with nutrition value, decrease the bad things come along with the food. And also the second step is also true when you ingest the food containing spice, and the spice can continue work once get inside of you and through microbiomes and to have second wave or second layer or second, chance to help your body. Is, like I said, it's not just physical, but it's also mental as well.
It's mental, yeah.
Your
So
mood.
you say here decrease in postprandial endothelial dysfunction by spice mix added to high-fat hamburger
Yes.
meat in men with type 2 diabetes mellitus.
Right.
So what I want to understand this is that, so there's a difference between people who don't have BMI over, let's say, 21 and folks who have BMI over 21, and they behave differently, right? Behave differently to this idea.
Right. So you basically asking me the question is for normal individual, meaning in overall good health versus, diseased individual. Typically, I would say, you see more benefit from people with disease because, it's easier to see the change. But for healthy people, though, it's a different goal. For healthy people, it's not for you to start to have disease. It's much more prevention in mind. So the study you mentioned, we not only checking the blood level of the, oxidized lipids, the bad lipids, but we're also looking at how your blood vessel function because I mentioned heart disease, risk factors. So what we did is really looking at your blood vessel responsiveness after you eating hamburger. Typically, I don't know if people know or not, everyone after eating food, particularly with, red meat and high fat, your body would have inflammation going on after each time you eat. And because that inflammation, your blood vessel, if you particularly already have diabetes, would have decreased responsiveness and more likely to have a heart attack, in a sense. Your blood vessel is more likely to be restricted and constricted, and then you have heart attack. So that study you referred to, we directly tested the patient with diabetes, and when they eating a hamburger, with and without spice, how their blood vessel will respond. We clearly demonstrate if you eating that burger meat with spice in it, and your blood vessels are much better preserved, and therefore you could have much less of chance to have a heart attack. Right. So that's direct clinical evidence to demonstrate what spice can do to you. So now back to, we talked about the cinnamon. We all have cinnamon bun. So probably that is culturally we learned when you have so much sugar, you better have your cinnamon come along. So that would prevent you to have too high blood glucose after you consume them. So this is our ancestors have all the way figured it out.
I know this. So you have another paper here, turmeric and black pepper spices decrease lipid pre-oxidation in meat patties during cooking. So you say here spices are rich in natural antioxidants and have been shown to be potent inhibitors of lipid pre-oxidation during cooking of meat. Turmeric contains unique conjugated strong antioxidant activity. So I grew up with turmeric. I mean, it's like anything that I ate had turmeric in it, This is South India, Turmeric was the thing, You don't cook anything without turmeric. But you're saying that's a good thing, no?
Yes. So here, this, turmeric, can do so much for you, right? So number one, they can inhibit bad bacteria, the one we call pathogen can cause you diarrhea. So turmeric can kill them. So that is the simplest thing we know. And the second of all, and because turmeric has so many phenolic compounds, they are decrease inflammation, right? Maybe now you have other food and provoking your body, and turmeric like the firefighters and try to put out the fire. Right. And also, and those are the good things, and turmeric then can have the bacteria release compounds to support your immune system, support your brain function, and support and how the body efficiently function. And so that's the reason turmeric is so much of Southeast Asia, culture and cuisine. So our ancestors even figured out, if you have fat food.
Those guys are smart.
I know. So the reason you eat turmeric often with high-fat food is because the fat also help absorption of turmeric as well. But meanwhile, turmeric can help the fat absorption during most of the time during evolutions. We deal with starvation, right? We want the fat to be absorbed. Meanwhile, and we'll make sure the fat is not causing too much lipid oxidation that may damage our heart. So this is many. Also, it can decrease cholesterol, and the bad cholesterol go too high. So you can see turmeric can help. Even just one, sort of a spice can help a human being from many different perspectives. We have done 2 studies clearly demonstrate in today's environment, turmeric consumption can help slow down cognitive decline, particularly preserve memories. This is beyond what I just talked about, decrease risk.
How's the metabolic access? Do you have
it's
turmeric?
Through the gut mostly through gut microbiome. And antioxidants effect play a role as well.
Excellent. This has been good.
Okay. All right.
Thanks so much for spending time with me.
Not a problem at all. Anytime. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.